Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. A little different. So I'm actually just like folding some laundry and taking care of some stuff here around the house. But I figured it would be kind of fun just to do like a live, even if it's just audio and no video. And I might just kind of like talk or ramble as I'm taking care of some stuff here around the house. And I figured if anyone has any questions for Q&A, we can do that also. I'm happy to answer any questions. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to come on to go live again. I was live last night and I only had the intention of being live for, 10 or 15 minutes, but stuff happens and time gets away and you get caught up and passionate about the topic. And I've been thinking more about the topic from last night and how I can, I guess, kind of elaborate on that topic further, because I don't think some people still fully understand kind of where I'm coming from when I'm talking about energy vampirism, psi-vamps, and empaths, and them kind of being, two sides of the same coin, if you will. And a bunch of people who identify as an empath kind of got upset because they were like, oh, so, hey, Nocturnal. They're like, oh, so, you're calling me an energy vampire, blah, 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 blah. And I just think that the metaphysical new age occult community sometimes can just be really toxic. There's a lot of toxic positivity culture in our community, and there's a lot of fear around vampires and vampiric people. And I think that some of that kind of stems from, I would say, even our subconscious mind, in the sense that, we're kind of conditioned to be wary of predators in the physical or the digital or the astral. But like energy vampires, half the time they don't even realize that they're siphoning off of someone's energy. At least most energy vampires I know don't even realize that that's what they're doing. And in my opinion, and I think someone actually commented this on the video last night, and I really think that this was a really nice way of kind of putting it, but they were saying how, to them, an empath is kind of an unevolved energy vampire. And I think that's a really smart way of putting it, because I do believe that empaths and energy vampires are of the same yolk. I'm not saying that they're, necessarily exactly the same thing, but like empaths are still absorbing energy around them. They're still absorbing life force and energy of people, places, and things all around them. And like how I would like for someone to tell me how they think that's different. I think a lot of times empaths get really defensive, Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. My allergies are annoying. I'm sure you can probably hear that a little bit in my voice. My allergies are bothering me. But other than that, like, I'm doing pretty good. I was just talking about last night's live stream. And yeah, I've not done a stream like this before where it's just audio. But I'm like running around my house today, like a mad woman trying to like do dishes and clean and sweep and mop and dust and laundry and whatever. So I thought this would be kind of fun because I can kind of do like kill two birds with one stone, two birds, one stone, if you will. I also did a live on TikTok. I don't know if any of you guys are on TikTok or not, but I did a live on TikTok. Actually, I've done a live on TikTok the past couple of days. And man, the lives on TikTok, that's a totally different world, for real. That's a totally different world. Like, I feel like here on YouTube, the community is, I would say, more intimate, in the sense that, like, typically people that you're engaging with or engaging with you are people that, like, I don't know, you kind of build, I would say, a little bit more of a relationship with, and you kind of get to know more, versus on TikTok, like the live stream area, you can just scroll through there. Hey, KT, welcome. You can just scroll through the lives. So at one point last night, I had like 12K like viewers. I was like, what the hell is going on? And then, like, of course, you know, the more people, more problems, right? More viewers, more problems. So then you got people like coming in there saying all types of crazy stuff. So, how did haunt season treat me? Haunt season was good. I'm, you know, very thankful for haunted season. It's definitely a bag, and I definitely enjoy it. I think this year, you know, I would say, had some unique challenges this year. You know, and I don't know if it's because of like COVID and, you know, living in a pandemic Lovato, and like we're still kind of coming out of that and people have been really cooped up. And so people just don't know how to fucking act. Like, I don't know if it's like that. Hey, Julie, thanks for joining. I'm doing well. I hope you are too. I'm just doing some laundry here and doing an audio live. I figured, you know, I'd like to, I haven't done a Q&A in a while. And if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Mitch Maven says, so much misunderstanding. The word empath can mean a million things. Interpretation is varied. People in general get offended just for the sake of getting offended, per usual. I mean, I don't disagree with you. And that's why I said myself, you know, in the beginning of the conversation, in the beginning of the dialogue, I said, let's first define the words that we're using, right? Because misinterpretations can happen, misunderstandings can happen. That's okay, right? But let me define how I'm using these words. So I don't know if any of you were on the live at all last night, or if you've seen it or not. But if you haven't, I'll tell you that basically, in a nutshell, I was talking about how energy vampires, specifically psi-vamps and empaths, are, I would say, two sides of a similar coin, in the sense that, you know, how would you, I want you to think about this, everyone. How would you personally define energy vampirism? You know, how would you explain a psi-vamp? What do they do? How does it work? Right? And then think about how you define an empath. So for me, what I said is, I feel like empaths absorb the energy, specifically the life energy, the prana, the chi of people, places, and things all around them. And typically it's not even on purpose. Like, it's a subconscious sort of reflex that empaths have, right? And that's why they have to practice grounding so much. That's why grounding techniques are so incredibly important for people who have high amounts of empathic abilities, because that energy can be very overwhelming, you know, and it can even make people sick in their mind, body, or spirit. Well, that's the same for energy vamps as well. They also have to practice grounding themselves. They also can get sick off of energy. They also can sense and feel the energies. And, you know, some people equate, like, I've had people be like, okay, well, if they are the same thing, then an energy vampire is just a dark empath. And why I personally, I would say, disagree with that sort of terminology is because if an energy vampire is a dark empath, then that would imply that there's such thing as like a light empath. Oh, you saw the replay? Awesome. You think that most people have a bit of a mix of both? As a Reiki master, you always have to protect your energy first. Yep. Yep, yep, yep. Yeah, I think when it comes to vampirism, like, to me, being an empath is just another form of vampirism. I mean, think about this too. If we were to look at this from, I would say, like a biological level, and if we look to nature and if we look to animals in our environment, any sort of creature, right, or animal of any kind that drains, purposefully or not, the life force, the energy, the blood, whatever you want to call it, of another living thing is parasitic, period. Like, we would not hesitate to call something parasitic or vampiric in the animal world. So I think that a lot of the attitude around this sort of conversation when we're talking about, empath, because I feel like that's very much a big buzzword right now, right? It's a buzzword. To be honest, Black Wolf says, to be honest, I'm a natural empath, and really sometimes energies can be overwhelming. But what you say is true. Empath, in a natural sense, get into feels of other people and spaces, and in the end, you can use it. As well as all the energy, just being mindful of action, of what you're doing and how you're doing it. Yeah. Yep. Mitch says, personal preference and understanding. Everyone is different, all unique humans. Through my spiritual journey, I lost many people in my life. Preach, preach. Duality is super strong, and I have seen this in the last year. You see so many books on empaths these days. You do, and that's why I was saying, like, it's kind of like this buzzword, and to a degree, I think that takes away some of the real legitimacy of it sometimes, is because it's become this buzzword, kind of like how in the 90s we had indigo children, right? Like, every child who was neurodivergent then became an indigo child. And, like, I am not saying that there's not validity or power or weight to the philosophy of indigo children. I'm not here to debate the validity of that. But I'm saying that I feel like currently, in the roaring 20s, if you will, as it's 2021, I feel like our buzzword right now for the community is very much empath. Empath, empath, empath. You see memes of this on Facebook, you hear it in music, you see it all over social media. There's tons of books being written about it. Healing the wounded empath, and the dichotomy of the narcissist and the empath, and like that whole concept is very trending right now. And I think it's easy for a lot of people to identify with this aspect of spirituality. With this aspect of spirituality, And kind of going back into what I was talking about earlier on, like, social media stuff, I definitely enjoy the YouTube community that I have here on my channel more so than I do my community on TikTok. Not that I don't enjoy TikTok also, but I just feel like I have a much closer relationship with you guys over here than I have on TikTok, because TikTok is just so much more, I don't know, impersonal. Maybe that's the right word. Nocturnal says it feels like more of the white versus black, like the love and light folks can only be associated with empaths. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. I think that there's a lot of people who are afraid of their own shadow, you know? Um, and I very much believe, right, that we can all find our own path to truth, whatever that might be. Regardless of your orthodoxy or your orthopraxy, you are entitled to, you know, live the life that you see that is most fit for you. What you're not entitled, though, to do is to try to steamroll other people or diminish other people using your faith or religion or practices, to belittle people and bully people using your religious faith or practices. And that's something that, I personally choose to not tolerate ever. So anytime I feel like someone is being judgmental, you know, when it comes to stuff like this, I just kind of start shutting them out, because that to me kind of shows, not to use these buzzwords again, but it kind of shows that really, I mean, lower vibrational thinking, and a lot of that also comes from a scarcity mindset, as well. Like feeling. It's an act of poverty, really, and I'm not even talking about financial poverty. I'm talking about mental poverty when I say this. There are always the people who are going to. Okay, let me get some of my thoughts in order here. I had a very delicious cookie earlier, if you know what I mean. So if I feel kind of rambly, that would be why. But if we think about this once again as like taking this back to nature, because I just think that the natural world is some of our best metaphors, right? I mean, we can look to nature even on a magical level, whether it be like the cycles of the moon, the seasons, animals. This is why I, as a witch, have no issue with maledictas. This is why I, as a witch, have no issue with using magic for a baneful purpose. Nature is cruel as well. Who are you to tell me that I'm not allowed to use what I believe to be as my birthright, any witch's birthright, magic? Who are you to tell me how I am and am not allowed to use it when nature herself is cruel and unrelenting at times? Like, give me a break, right? I'm rambling. What were we talking about? What were we talking? I don't remember. Maybe this is why you shouldn't eat special cookies and live stream and do laundry at the same time. I don't know. It's been a while since I've been live during this time of day. And I was looking at my channels analytics, which, you guys, that's always so interesting to do when you look at that and you look at some of these metrics and you look at some of these numbers, because it's just kind of surprising sometimes. But YouTube was telling me that most of my viewers are engaging with my content, and this is globally, okay? So keep that in mind. I sound like Lady Dimitrescu. I don't know who that is. I'll have to look and see who that is. I have some allergies going on right now, so if I sound a little extra froggy, that might be why. I don't know. I think that's the lady with the big hat, right? Like she's like a tall vampire, right? And she has like a big hat. I think that's her. correct me if I'm wrong. But so I was looking at the channel's analytics, you guys, because like, I don't know, it's just fun to do that every once in a while. And this is like a global thing. Oh, she's a vampire. Hey, Crafton. I thought you'd be working, babe. She's a vampire. We are both dark and light, devil and savior incarnate. I mean, we really put many restrictions and rules onto us. The karma rule, threefold rule, with curses and so on. But truly, if we put all that aside, we can be truly dark beings if we want to. Right? Oh, you're on break? Well, I've just been rambling as one does, talking about, you know, initially I was talking about my live stream yesterday, and I was talking about psi vampirism, and I was talking about how empaths and energy vampires are one and the same, and how they're both vampiric. And then that led me into talking about a million other topics. But so, okay, listen, when I was looking at the analytics, I was kind of surprised that the people who are engaging with my content most is between 4 and 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, I'm pretty sure, you know, these analytics are like global. So like it's 4 and 6 my time. I don't know if that means that other people are watching this at 4 and 6 their time. Because that's kind of the cool thing about social media is that like you can be engaging with people all over the world, which is kind of crazy to think about sometimes. I'm also putting my laundry up. And you guys are kind of helping actually motivate me to do so. Because I have this horrible, horrible, horrible habit of I'll do my laundry and then it'll sit in a clean laundry chair or something for a little while. Hey, Jaquay. It's pretty cool. I'm seeing some new people in my stream who I haven't seen before. So that's cool. Cool. Chicago time. That's when you get off work, Jeff, from 3 to 6. Yeah, I think, you know, that's also kind of part of why I was like, well, let me just try to do a stream since this is supposed to be like the busiest time of day for people who engage with my content, you know? And, you know, maybe this isn't super entertaining to anyone here. Hey, Amber, welcome. You know, maybe this isn't super entertaining because it's just audio. And like I said, I'm just kind of running around my house right now. I'm folding laundry and putting it up while talking to you guys. Oh, right on. I really want to do another one of those. Do all witches think the same? It's been a while. I was, I don't know if they're watching right now or not, but I was talking with Orly and Yuri earlier, like a couple days ago. Actually, while I was getting tattooed, we were video chatting, and they were talking about having me on their channel next month. You're crocheting a sock? That's cool. Midnight lace. People get empathy and sympathy mixed up. So being sympathetic is viewed as empathy today when they're so different from one another. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that a lot of people, you know, get those things kind of twisted and tangled, unfortunately. I feel like I've kind of, I don't know. I think what I want to do is to make a proper video expressing how I feel about energy vampirisms and empaths and energy vamps being kind of one and the same. I think I want to make a proper video about it where I kind of present the topic and address it and make it like a nice, neat, pristine video and have kind of my thoughts put more into a consecutive order. Oh my gosh, you guys. So I ordered all this stuff from Shein, which I think I showed in another live, but I forgot that I got this tank top. It's so cute. It's just like a black tank top that has little like skeleton hands over the chest. It's really cute. Oh, you really enjoyed the empath and energy vampire video. You agree it's all the same thing. Right on. Right on. Everything is connected, Julie. I agree. So what did you guys, for those of you who watched yesterday's stream, what did you think of me talking about like the whole fourth power thing? Because that was the other half of my live stream from yesterday, was kind of venting about this whole to keep silent thing. Now, listen, okay, I definitely think that there is some weight to this. I'm not saying I think that the fourth power is bullshit. So before anyone like, you know, gets mad in the comments, that's not at all what I'm saying. Gang, gang. I'm going to pin this right here because I don't want to forget this. Because I love when you guys ask questions. So I'm going to pin that. But I want to address first the fourth power thing again. So for those of you who didn't see the live stream yesterday, I was talking about the four powers of the Magi, you know, to know, to will, to dare, to keep silent. And I was talking about how annoying it is to have people throw around this whole fourth power term. Oh, can you guys hear me? I just noticed that there's an overlay now on the screen. Comment something below if you can still hear me with that overlay on. I don't know if that affects my audio or not. I don't want to ramble too much if it does. I'll give it a second. Okay, great. Sorry about that. I think there's a little bit of a lag or a delay with the chat. So talking about the fourth power, right? The fourth power would be to keep silent. So if we're looking at the witch's pyramid, to know, to will, to dare, to keep silent. The fourth power is to keep silent, and that is what is the most controversial. So to kind of make it short, sweet, and quick, to know means to know your stuff, to know yourself, to know your craft, to have your studying, to apply, you know, yourself to a commitment of learning. That's your to know. To will is to like will it to manifest, like to have the will to, you know, bring this into fruition. To dare means like to actually dare to do, you know, so like actually go to the cemetery and do some necromancy, right? And then to keep silent is like, that's the most controversial part of the witch's pyramid. And I think what some witches, and I'm talking to witches right now, okay, I'm talking to witches specifically with this, who follow the witch's pyramid. And not all witches do follow the witch's pyramid. And if this doesn't apply to you, that's okay. It doesn't have to be for you, baby. Not everything's got to be for you. But to the witches this does apply for, we need to kind of remember that every witch can observe the fourth power in any way that they see fit. Um, any way that they see fit. So where your fourth power might lie can be different than where another witch's fourth power might lie, right? Yeah, so like the staying silent part. This is where I think witches will observe things differently. Okay. Because I'll speak from my own experience here. For me, where does the fourth power come into play? Well, for one, being in a coven, um, the fourth power is different for me because there are certain rules and laws and obligations and expectations that come along with being in a coven. And so the fourth power insinuates in our coven that it's not that you can't talk about Fight Club necessarily, right? I'm not saying that. It's more that, like, I could tell my coworkers, for example, or I could tell you guys on YouTube, oh yeah, I got together with my coven and we did like a Samhain celebration, right? Or we honored our beloved dead, you know. But the to keep silent part comes more into play magically. So like if we did any kind of spell work, I'm probably not going to share that with anyone outside of our coven who's not initiated. But that's also how it would work within a coven, right? Like you keep people's confidentiality there. Amber says maybe to keep silent stems from fear of persecution. Does mean keeping silent about what you're practicing? I mean, yeah, pretty much, Amber. I think that's really kind of the origin, is because, you know, up until recently, witches have always been very much taboo and living on the fringes of society. So talking about your witchcraft openly with just anyone and just telling people about how you did this spell or that spell, one, it's kind of frowned upon because a lot of these are mystery traditions that we are practicing and exploring. And so you're kind of doing a disservice to the magic and to yourself by just sharing it with just anyone. And two, people might judge you, or, you know, bad things might happen from people who are not witches, who maybe wish to stand in the way of your blessings or hurt you or harm you, or, you know, enact some sort of judgment of discrimination. Um, and then also, other practitioners, you know, not every witch is your friend. Okay. Like, people are crazy out there. And if one witch sees that you're doing this or that, they might want to do something to negate that, you know? So a lot of times I feel like the fourth power comes into play that you don't talk about it while it's going on. You don't talk about it while it's going on. Um, you know, sometimes it's best to move in silence, if you know what I mean. And it's one thing if you have a very trusted close friend or something, but just publicly for just anybody and everybody, that's not always the best decision. Um, you know, let's say that you're doing some sort of love spell, and I see that you're doing this love spell, and I see that you're trying to manifest love in your life, which means to a degree you're lacking it in your life. You know, if I really wanted to mess some shit up and I saw that going on, maybe I'm doing a working at the same time trying to mess up your working. Yeah, Black Wolf says, with being silent about your work, ritual you perform right now, you don't speak about it because with thinking comes energy, and the person that thinks about it gives energy into that spell mess a little. I agree. Um, I agree. Now, so this is what I was talking about in the live yesterday, is I was saying how, you know, with that being said, there are times where I have, you guys have, if you follow my channel, you've seen this, but there are times where I've shared real, live, active rituals and spells on my channel. And I've gotten ridiculed for that by some other witches being like, oh, that's breaking the fourth power and blah, blah, blah. For example, I have one spell here on my channel. You can go and find it. It's definitely a malediction. It's a lengua spell. It's a cow tongue spell. And typically these lenguas are used for like kind of like a shut the fuck up or a stop gossip sort of spell. But I was doing this lengua more in the sense that I want this person to, you know, be shut up permanently, if you know what I mean. It's a very graphic video. You can watch it if you want. But that was a real spell, and I meant every single thing I said in that video. And, you know, when it actually came to manifest, because shocker, it does. That's how magic works. Some people were a little upset or uncomfortable. Like, I didn't mean every word that I said. So I don't know why we're so surprised. You know? And if you've seen the lengua video, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into explicit details about that on this live. But if you've seen it, the Death Upon My Enemies lengua video, then you already know what I'm talking about. And I'm not going to rehash it necessarily. But, so, okay. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment those down below. Let me scroll back up here. Jack said, do you think narcissists are a form of energy vampires? Or is that what you said? Do you think narcissists are a form of energy vampires? Yeah, that's what you said. No, I don't. If you do, I'm open to hearing kind of why you think a narcissist would be an energy vampire. I don't necessarily think that narcissists have to drain energy the same way that energy vampires do. Self-aware narcissists are spiritually void. Yeah. I mean, what do you guys think? I don't know if I think that narcissists are a form of energy vampires. What brought you to learning and exploring tarot? Love this question. See, I'm a divination girl through and through. Love divination. For me, divination was probably one of the first forms of the craft that I was ever really exposed to growing up. I got my first deck of tarot cards, actually. I was 13 years old, and this is so funny, but my mom actually bought them for me from Hot Topic. I was 13. I still have this deck. It's a really cheesy, gimmicky tarot deck. And it's kind of bordering on traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, but not quite. But it's funny, it has like past, present, future meanings on the cards. But that was my first tarot deck ever. I think what got me into it initially is my family has always been very, very, very strong into divination. I wouldn't say that, you know, other people in my family would necessarily use the word witch to describe who and what we are and who and what we do. But myself, and also let me say this too. I am the fourth of 8 kids in my family. And where I fall in the birth order is I fall smack dab in the middle. So I'm like a super middle child. And I have 2 sisters and 5 brothers. Um, but like I said, I have 2 sisters and 5 brothers. I fall smack dab in the middle. And I'm not necessarily saying that, my mom played favorites with us per se, but me and my mother and my grandmother, we always had a very different sort of bond, given what sort of child I was growing up. And, because of some of my needs and just who I am, growing up as the child of experience that I am, kind of, I needed different care and attention. So I am much closer with my mother and my grandmother. And I learned a lot from them. And I still learn all the time from my grandmother, all the time. But like astrology and divination has always been, I would say, a foundational pillar of my familiar culture. Like weddings are not planned without looking at the stars, like literally. Pulling like tarot cards or oracle cards was just a normal part of life. Like it wasn't necessarily looked at maybe how we would look at it now. So that I always was around it. I've always been around it. And I grew up with the concept of, our third eye and our intuition. My family calls it the eye. That's what we call it. And, there's a belief that some people have it and some people don't. Some people choose to keep their eyes closed. I'm definitely different than my immediate family as well. I hope that you don't get the idea that my whole family were all kumbaya necessarily, because that's definitely not the case. I've always been the black sheep in my family. I've always been the black sheep. As someone who is, neurodivergent and LGBT, I've always been the black sheep. And that's okay. I would say philosophy, religion, divination, some of that I share in common with my family. But especially after my mother passed away in 2016, our family's been very different. I mean, she was a huge foundational piece in our family work. She was really the glue that kind of bonded us all together. So I have siblings who I haven't seen since before she passed. I'm fairly close with my stepfather, and I have a sister who I'm close to, but that's it, really. Midnight says, that sounds like giving power to people outside of you, when in my personal view is that nobody has your intention or will. So stop giving people power over you and what you do and how you do it. I think that this was a comment from earlier. I'm not super sure what this was in reference to, but if we're talking about maledictions, I believe that that's a huge part of maledictions, is getting your target to believe that you do have power over their will. But I think that we all have free will. And I think that is a strong connection to our prana and our soul. And I believe that you can will things to be or to not be, for sure. Black Wolf says, question Jazz. What do you think about many collective currents and magic working with beings? I mean, you can see it only as emanations of specific texture of energy, but I guess as faces of divinity. I'm not sure how to take this question. Like, do you mean like how there can be 10 different people who work with Hecate who have 20 different experiences. Is that kind of what you mean? Like how there are people who work with similar spirits or energies who have completely different experiences than each other? Do you have any homemade tools? And if so, which are your favorites? My Book of Shadows is a constant DIY project. I kind of think of it as like my energy scrapbook. And I think I've said this before, but my Book of Shadows is also a tool as well, in the sense that like I have a spirit board and pendulum boards, made inside of the book. And I've also, burned candles and performed rites and ceremonies inside of the book as well. So I think my book would probably be my favorite handmade tool. Um, that's a good question, though. I'll see you later, Nocturnal. Hey, Sharon. How wonderful. I'm so different from my immediate family. I am the most spiritually open, and I always remember browsing tarot decks when growing up. Astrology is a beautiful thing as well. I bought my first tarot oracle deck within the last few years. Okay. My dad is the most spiritually open next to me. I remember my mom being upset when I quit going to Mass. Okay, Black Wolf says, I mean as beings that can be as representative of specific currents of energy, and they can be viewed as emanations of energy, but I kind of see them as faces of divinity as itself. Source, chaos. Okay, so like people tapping into these collective energy sources, because I've talked about how I kind of perceive this myself too, and like I definitely subscribe to some of the, I would say, Hindu notions that kind of like soft monotheism, in the sense that there is one divine source that all things have come from and that all things return to. Um, but there's different animations and representations of that source. Like, so the source being the universe, for example, which I personally believe it to not be sentient. I just believe it to be primordial. And energy has come from this source. And we've called this energy by different names based on, geographic location, region, language, culture, all these things. Like the energy of love, we might call Freya or Venus or Aphrodite, or Lakshmi. But while they're separate, right, because they have their own cultural depictions and stories and correspondences, it all ties back into the same energy. Like I relate this to like pizza because I like to eat, but there's one pizza with a bunch of different slices. I'm making some coffee right now, you guys. There's one pizza with a bunch of different slices. And like there's Hawaiian, pepperoni, supreme, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of how I view the gods, is slices of source and divinity. And I think that, chaos in of itself is also a divine primordial source, just like order is, just like life is, death is, light, void. These are primordial forces that very much are connected to the divine source, the one. And people working with these currents, absolutely. I mean, if you can tap into, feel, work with, name, evoke, invoke, embody any type of energy or spirit of any kind, then you can work with anything that you put your mind to and that you commit yourself to working with. Absolutely. Could you further elaborate on being neurodivergent? So what I mean by being neurodivergent is my brain is just wired differently. And, um, typically people with, whether it be learning disabilities or mental health issues, their brains are just different. They're not neurotypical, they're neurodivergent. And a lot of times this comes with our brains working in different ways that a neurotypical brain wouldn't necessarily work. Our perception of reality or our senses can also be different because we're not neurotypical. I think more people are neurodivergent than they think. Well, I've gotten all of my laundry put up, so that's a plus. Earlier today, I made some sayadilla, but with chicken instead. And, I'm still very much observing um, this time of death and the other realm and transitions of those sorts, and honoring my ancestors. And, um, I'm kind of transitioning out of these vibes and into some winter solstice vibes. But I always like to kind of stretch the season of death, if you will, into like about the middle of November. That's about how I pull it too. So I made some food. Like I said, I made some sayadilla, but instead of it being with fish, I made it with chicken. And so I put some of that on the altar today for my ancestors. And I lit some of their candles. Actually, one more question. Cryptids in itself, they can be as astral beings, like the dog man, mothman, goat man, yeti, and so on. Have you ever thought about working with them for a theme of spooky season? Love this question. Love this. Yes. So earlier in the year, okay, I actually went on a crypt trip. Um, One of my dear friends and coven members invited me to go on this trip. I don't know if any of you have seen the program Hellier before, but it's about cryptids as well. And they were taking actually a cryptid trip, and they offered for me to go, and it was pretty much a free like trip. It was just last minute, so either you make it or you can't. And I went, and we went through Kentucky and West Virginia and Ohio. And we actually did a seance one of the nights, working with the Mothman. And we went to the Mothman Museum. Hold on, I gotta get some ice. I'm making an iced coffee. And found a lot of really interesting information out at the museum, but also during the seance. Cryptids, I believe you can work with them like you can any other spirit. Some of these cryptids, I believe, are indigenous spirits of the land itself. And then some of the spirits I also believe are, some of these cryptids I believe are actually extraterrestrials. And some of these cryptids, I believe, are just workings or conjurations that have been created and cast upon the land. Now, have I ever necessarily done a working in correspondence with any of them? No, I have not. I would say the closest there is to that is the summoning of the Mothman and the seance we had with the Mothman. What are your thoughts on the use of pendulums? I think pendulums can be a great resource. I think pendulums can be a great tool. I think that if you feel called to, use an item or a tool, then I believe that that's your intuition kind of guiding you and leading you to do so. I think that a nice thing about pendulums is that you can tend to get pretty concise, clear-cut answers. You can also use them for dowsing. They make really good dowsing tools as well. And oftentimes, especially if you wear jewelry, you typically always have a pendulum on the ready. Like, your pendulum doesn't have to be a super fancy crystal on a sterling silver chain from a new age shop. A pendulum can be a piece of your hair wrapped around a ring that you wear, or it can be a necklace. And you can use that to tap into your higher self or to communicate with spirits or the dead at any given time to get clear yes or no answers. I've been really into using my Divine Feminine Oracle deck. It has beautiful insights. I really enjoy the Stacey DeMarco. It's the Goddesses and Sirens for the Divine Feminine. And then for the Divine Masculine, it's the Gods and Titans Oracle decks. Those are really lovely. I actually pull one of each deck every Samhain. So you have like your Divine Masculine and your Divine Feminine for the year. And last year, my Divine Masculine was Zeus, which was interesting to say the least. I didn't necessarily, do workings with Zeus, but Zeus representing leadership and authority and other things, I definitely feel like it was kind of foreshadowing. And then my Divine Feminine was the Valkyries, which is about redemption. This year, my Divine Masculine and my Divine Feminine. My Divine Feminine is Andromache. Believe she's Greek. She's the destroyer of men. Andromache, which I'm not as familiar with her. I'm still getting to know her and her mythology. But my Divine Masculine is Lu, the Lord of Light, which is pretty cool. Because one of our other coven sisters got Lu last year, and we celebrate the Wheel of the Year. And so, Luna said, being Lu's one of, the biggest holidays for Lu, really, and his feast day. That's pretty cool. And also, too, around Lammas, Luna said, we take our coven's retreat. And there are certain rites and rituals, right, and ceremonies around Lammas, the first harvest. And Luna said, the festival of Lu, the Lord of Light, the God of craftsmen. There are certain rites of passage and initiations and rituals and ceremonies that happen that time of year. And I myself had made some pacts and some deals, kind of signed my name in blood, if you will. And I remember after one of the rituals, kind of looking at these trees that are near this cabin that we stay at when we go on retreat. And I remember thinking, like, the next time I'm looking at these trees, my life is going to be fundamentally different. And I knew that, this upcoming year for me is going to be a big year of change. Um, Good changes, but change. Um, in tarot, the year this year is the Hierophant. That's the tarot card of this year. And I say that because if you take a look at the numerology of the year and you break that numerology down and you add those numbers up, so you take the year, right? So 2021, add 2 plus 2 plus 1, you get 5. You get the Hierophant. You have to look at the tarot card of the year as upright or reversed. So upright this year is all about, upholding traditions and institutionalized structures. And reversed, it's about breaking tradition and breaking institutionalized structures. Now, that's a card for the entire collective. You can take a look at your own personal tarot card of the year by taking your birthday. Okay. So your birth month, your birthday, but then the current year. So if you use your birth year, that would be your birth card, the year that you were born. And that's an influential card for you. But if you use the current year, that's how it's going to be impacting you this year. So, for example, my personal card for this year as well is also the Hierophant. So it's kind of intensified this aspect of upholding traditions or breaking traditions. And for me personally, it's definitely been a lot of rebelling against the status quo, breaking generational cycles, breaking traditions. It's very much been the Hierophant reversed for me, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I know that, um, there's a lot of change that I'm catalyzing for myself. A lot of really big internal changes, a lot of, growth. And then also, I think about how all of this can impact things on an internal level, but also an external level. And I think that my entire life, as someone who has always been such a black sheep, if you will, as someone who has always been taboo or intense, I think that that's part of my role is to serve an adversarial role and to serve the role of, the breaker of chains, if you will, not only for myself, but for others also. Thank you. I really appreciate your thoughts. I just restrung my pendulum key to my astral temple. I wasn't sure if it was safe to use, but I'd like to think it depends on the intention. Yeah. Yep. I would agree. Man, I'm really jealous of y'all with being able to present yourself truly honest to yourself as witches, mages, and whatever you identify as. I, as I live in a really stick religious household, can't do much yet. That's tough, you know? Um, Part of me wants to say, you know, fuck all that and be yourself and live authentically and, um, be unapologetic about doing so. But I also, at the same time, understand and realize that that's a privilege to be able to do so. And you have to do what you have to do to survive. Um, and also, too, like, I believe that everything is temporary. So maybe right now, what's best for you is to, remain sacred and shrouded, is what I like to call it. It's not necessarily about hiding your true self, it's about protecting yourself. And there's sacredness in that as well. That doesn't make you weak, that doesn't make you lesser, that makes you aware of your surroundings And witches, like I said, have always, 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 always had to adapt to their surroundings. And the position that you are in now is no different. Mitch says the internal struggle is real. Have to stand up and step out of the norm. Yes. Yes. I think that especially since 2020, which is, by the way, the year of the emperor. And let me just say this, and then do not take any men watching, do not take any offense to this. It's just a funny kind of thing. But a plague and the amount of civil unrest we had would have never happened in the year of the Empress. That's all I'm saying. 2020 was an emperor year. And like I said, when you look at these cards for the year, you need to be looking at their upright and reversed correspondence. And the emperor upright is positive masculinity and authority and power. Um, and reversed, it's toxic masculinity, authoritarianism, and control. Um, and that's definitely how 2020 was for so many of us. And I think that that's something that we're still coming out of. Earlier, um, we were talking about haunted season and just how crazy it was working at some of the festivals and haunts this year because people have been so cooped up. It's like they don't know how to act. They don't know how to act. You know, so dealing with some of that foolishness. But I have been streaming now for about an hour, which is crazy. I'm going on an hour and 7 minutes. In the end, even by my situation, I am blessed a bit. I always try to see normal, common things around myself as tools I can use in my practice. This situation has taught me to seek power wherever I can. Absolutely. Absolutely, Black Wolf. And don't underestimate the power of the astral working realms as well. I mean, you can there's a video that I made talking about the Emergent Magic book, which talks about the magical process and practice of building a citadel, which isn't necessarily a new concept per se, but the way that they worded it is really nice. But you can build astral temples in your mind's eye, and you can astral travel to them, and you can have complete altars and put on complete rites and passages and ceremonies in the astral plane alone um, through the power of visualization. Um, so, yeah, and finding tools of everyday common items in your home or out in nature, very powerful, very powerful. There are witches who, have never done that and are not capable and wouldn't even know where to start because they've always just lived in a very materialistic sort of worldview. Like there's witches who they've gone out and they've bought the $80 pendulum and the $45 tarot deck and, a $60 altar cloth and $24 effigy candles and a $75 statue. And I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily, especially as someone who works at a metaphysical store, with purchasing metaphysical goods. But if your entire practice is store bought and nothing is organic to you or handmade, or, if every single thing has to be a material purchased item of value, then I would question the authenticity of what you're practicing to a degree. Well, I appreciate you all keeping me company. Um, this was definitely fun. I think this is something that I would like to do again. Like I said, I've been streaming now for a little over an hour, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here. But this was fun. I've never done just like an audio based live before. I was kind of hesitant about it, but I think that it went well, and I was able to be productive around the house and get some laundry, you know, cleaned up and put away. Even as a witch, unfortunately, there's plenty of mundane things to do around the house. I definitely wish there was a spell or a magic wand I could wave and I could have brooms sweep themselves, but that's not the current reality that I'm living in. So, um, yeah, I hope that you all enjoyed. If you're watching a replay of this, or if you're listening currently now, and you have any questions that you would like to ask me, feel free to leave them down below. As always, you can leave them here in this comment section, or check the links in my bio, and you can contact me through some of those links there, um, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever. Um, if you're interested in any specific content from me, you can definitely request that. You can check out some of the exclusive content over on Patreon. And until next time, blessed be. And I will see you all soon. Good night.